The term fantasy wrestling was coined over 20 years ago when the internet brought play-by-mail federations to a whole new audience across the world. In that time, thousands of what became e-feds have spawned all over the web, including one in 2004 and 2005 known as Extreme Wrestling Entertainment. Over the next 10 years, Extreme Wrestling Entertainment hosted a wide variety of handlers and characters, including Johnny Chaos, White Tiger, Dynamic Derek Daniels, the Irish Fury Dutch Clark, and their current undisputed champion, Leon Kashmir. Today we celebrate the 10th anniversary of their top show, WrestleMania X, with a very special edition of Behind Enemy Lines. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dustin J. Markowitz alongside my broadcast partner, the Kentucky hot plate himself, John North, bringing you this special show, and I want to say thank you very much for tuning in. I don't know about you, John, but I feel very privileged for having the opportunity to not only talk about a game that we have been involved with for so long, but to be part of a federation that has maintained and sustained the test of time.
Yeah, not only that, but a show so nice that we decided to do it twice because somebody didn't record the last show right.
Well, it's not my fault I don't have a tech guy. You know, you have all that college, that Union College broadcast money coming in. Why you should get your editing team.
I should get my engineering team on it. I'll do that next time instead of ragging you on it. But yeah, I'm glad to be on again. Anytime that school's out for me now, so I don't really have a lot to talk about until August. So anytime I can get on here and talk about something I like, I'm all for it.
And obviously, whenever I have some free time between writing, the job, the talk show, and God knows what else, I'm glad to have an opportunity to shoot the breeze about EWE and e-fetting in general. And before we touch base on the card, I do want to say, first off, congratulations to John Mott, who founded the Fed. I know it started as a WWE Fed and eventually came over. And John, you and I have actually been here since the very beginning, as a matter of fact. Myself, Will the Thrower Westbrook, and you, Brandon Derek Daniels, and we kind of poked our head here and there throughout the early 2005, and then you were there through 2007, 2008, and then our comeback in 2010. And it's been an interesting ride. I find it very intriguing, the direction Jay took the Fed and the amount of detail he put into the history. There's not a lot of federations out there that I've seen that can say they've either been around that long or paid so much attention to the history it brought on.
Yeah, very true. Like I go to a lot of feds. Like one fed that I'm in as well as ECWF. First time I joined, it was a couple of years ago, and I said, hey, what's the history of this place, and what's the, because every company has that sort of thing, but they didn't really have anything like posted on the board, so it's kind of you're going in blind. But with EWE, all the history is there for you to research. You just got to do the work, from your opponents to your matches. Usually there's going to be some kind of history on the site that you can actually go and look at. So it's always a nice luxury to have.
Very much so. And one thing I really like, there's a core of e-fedders. And one thing in my time, I started in 1997. I'm what you would call a boomer e-fedder, as we've talked about in the show before. I've had an opportunity to role-play with quite literally probably, I'd probably say 1,000, if not more, handlers over my time, and 100 different feds with just as many characters. And the one thing that's interesting to me about EWE is that there's a core of role players that, quite frankly, could be world champions anywhere else they went. But they are here in EWE, and they stayed here in EWE for one reason or another. I don't know about you, John, but I don't remember ever seeing that outside of this fed.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of feds have that come and go. Every time. Like, take GIW, for example, because I was involved in that fed for a while, too. They have a different roster every time they open back up. There's a couple of the core of the same people, but with EWE, it's like 15 of the same people always come back when EWE opens. And, that's kind of why I always come back, too, just because you know the territory, and it's hard to go to another fed and just start anew or start, your story that you left off with your character from another fed. So... EWE always has those guys, Mike is always one of them, Shad, Jay, me, you, always seem to come back. So, it's always a fun time.
Absolutely. The only other fed I could think of in our time that even remotely would be close would probably be WFS. I mean, that's probably the only other fed I could think of that had a core like that.
And I agree. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And people just keep coming back to EW, and Jay could. I'd say EW could take a year off, and people would still. All Jay would have to do is send up the bat signal, and there they'd be.
The bat signal. Good analogy, Johnny.
Or the Mott signal. I don't know.
Before we run down the card, I do want to say this, and John, I'll throw this question out to you. This is going to be kind of an interesting way to look at things. Of course, like I said, this is the 10th anniversary year of EWE. Again, you and I have been part of it from the beginning, quite literally, and have been there through. You were there through what many would call the Attitude Era of EWE. I came back and kind of heralded in. I don't know what you would call the 2010 era, because that was I guess the equivalent would be the PG era and I don't know how.
I think you can honestly. I think you can call it the Punk era.
Yeah.
Because CM Punk kind of spurned that boom that happened in the summer of 2010 and 2011. It was kind of the beginning of these indie guys, Punk, Bryan. They kind of got their time to shine, and I think you saw a little bit of a boom in wrestling, and you also saw a boom in e-fetting.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. So we call it the Punk era. I know I came back right before all that came down. It was fun to see it grow again. And here's a question for you, John. Here we are 10 years in. Do you see EWE going another 10 years?
I mean, I don't see why not. I always thought that e-fetting would get harder when I got older. And to be honest, it's gotten easier to do. I've had this run with Leon now with a full-time job, a fiance, and my life has changed so drastically over the last year that I thought I would never get a chance to e-fed, and here I am making probably one of the biggest runs in my career as an e-fedder, not only in EWE but in other places as well. So it's a good feeling, but as I get older, it gets easier. So I don't know if that's because I have a little bit more free time now than I did in high school and college, or what it is, but it's weird.
Very strange. I know through 2012 when I ran into some issues, I had a lot of free time and it became very hard to e-fed. But then in 2013 when I brought Dutch back and I had my 2013 I consider a very strong year for Dutch, of course, and then Leon obviously coming into 2014. Between I have a full-time career writing, doing the talk show, your fiance. I mean, there was a lot of work for me.
I always drop my fiance. It's kind of like when Paul Heyman says my client, Brock Lesnar. It's kind of like me. I always say my fiance. I name drop her all the time, but she's wonderful, and that's why I do so.
It's going to be funny if she listens to the show. She's like, what does Dustin mean, his fiance? What?
Well, I knew it was real when I admitted to her that I was an e-fedder. That was when I knew that it was real between her and I, because she didn't break up with him immediately. She always wants to read my writing, and I never let her, but I think she sneaks and does it sometimes on my laptop. But she knows I'm a good writer, so I tell her that it's kind of personal, and I don't want her to read them. So, but yeah, she knows I e-fed, so she's a keeper.
That is good advice. I know my last girlfriend, Anna, became a fan of my writing. In fact, she actually hated the Dutch Clark angle where he was, right after the thing with John Steele, when he was becoming kind of excuse my language, a dick to everybody.
Yeah.
She thought that reflected on me. She's like, you need to write him better. I'll tell you what, for all the female e-fedders out there or your handlers, if you could tell your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever the case is, and they understand and accept it, that is the sexiest thing in the world to me. If you can listen to what you've written and enjoy it, that's definitely something special. So hold on to that if you got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny because like when I would go write, I would just kind of go off to myself. So it was always weird because I would make up these excuses to why, hey, I don't want to go out tonight because deadline is in an hour and I need to role play. And I couldn't tell her that, but now I can say, hey, I'm just gonna go in here and write a little while, and she knows exactly what I'm doing.
That's funny. That's great, though. I mean, that's really great. I know we're not really on WrestleMania talk, but this is our talk show. Behind Enemy Lines is not just about EWE. It's not just about their supercards. It's about e-fetting in general. And obviously, we have some listeners from LAW, for example, and some other feds have listened in. So, for all you guys that don't like it, screw you. Go listen to another e-fetting talk show. Find one.
There is a couple.
Yeah, there is a couple.
But they're not as good as ours. That's a fact.
Well, anyway, that's enough of that. Again, we are going to be talking about the single best darn fed on the internet today. That is, of course, Extreme Wrestling Entertainment, found at ewe-wrestling.net63.net. That's ewe-wrestling.net63.net. If you haven't check it out today. Some of the best e-fedders in the world, and I mean that quite literally, in the world, including who I consider the single best e-fedder going. My illustrious partner and my best student, John North, our current EWE Undisputed Champion, at least going into WrestleMania so far. Wink, wink.
I thought you were going to say myself. When you said I thought you were going to say myself. Dustin J. Markowitz.
Making me choke on my hazelnut milk, which, by the way, quick shout out to Pacific All-Natural Hazelnut Chocolate Milk. This is the greatest stuff in the world. If you guys decide you want to...
Our sponsor.
Yeah. If you want to sponsor our show, you don't even have to give us money. Just provide us with hazelnut milk. I will be a happy camper.
No, give me money.
But anyway, yeah, please, if you haven't checked out our Fed, please check it out. It is a wonderful experience for all. 10 years running. Again, we could talk it up all night if we had to. But we are going to jump right into it now. We had the WrestleMania 10 card, one of the best shows that we've had in probably, I would say, since Anniversary X, of course. Last Stand was good, but this has been, WrestleMania is always special. I know we have both been a part of several WrestleManias. I know our big one between John and I would have been WrestleMania 7, when we both main evented against each other. And I'll tell you what, John, I always feel that the Fed just picks up a notch on WrestleMania week. There's just something special going on.
It's I kind of feel like it's like when Raw the other, couple of years, I guess it was maybe a year ago, had, the special Raw 1000, and then it seems like they had another anniversary show not too long after that, maybe the 20th or whatever year of Raw, I don't know how many years, but it kind of feels like that. Anniversary X was a big show, and then we kind of had a little bit of downtime, and now right back at it with WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's always a great feeling. Big card, so we have a lot to go over. We will try to keep this as brief as we can. My Skype is going off, which, by the way, is our very own Fed, what's the terminology? Fed head? Is that the terminology?
Fed head, yeah.
I'm a fantasy wrestler, damn it. Our Fed president, Jay, was mentioning the final winner, so we actually will have some spoilers on the matches tonight, so I don't know. Should we spoil the matches, John?
What? You're going to spoil the matches?
We could!
Wow, no, we're not going to spoil the matches.
What if I want to? I can. It's our show.
You know how pissed Jay would be if he listened to this and we just gave away all the winners?
I don't know. We can wait to post it till after results go up.
That's true, too.
So
I don't know. But yeah, that was hilarious.
We won't spoil it, but I will say this. We actually, at the point right now, I believe all judging is in, but I'll tell you what, I will keep it as spoiler-free as I can for the time being, which means we probably won't keep it spoiler-free at all, but screw it, we'll do our best. So, again, we had a lot of different matches, I should say. We'll start off with the pre-show match. Number one was the Ladies' Night Invitational, which was for the Shining Star Championship. We had Vespertine, Calista Leon, and Caitlyn showing up for this match. Basically, we had Vespertine versus Calista Leon. I don't even really know what to say. The role plays were... This was just not a good match, John. I'm sorry. I can't talk up on this match at all.
I think it may give everybody a run for the main event. What do you think? I think Caitlyn may get number one overall role player.
I think whatever drugs you're on, you need to start sharing because.
Well, people think I'm Caitlyn anyway, so.
You're not?
No, I'm not Caitlyn.
I'll just say this. I'll make a prediction here. Again, this is not spoilers. This is just based on reading the role plays. I thought the best of the bunch was Calista Leon. Vespertine was filler. They were both filler. Let's be perfectly blunt. I just think Calista's was a little bit better filler.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think Vespertine even admitted that it was kind of filler and to kind of just brush it off. But nonetheless, I agree with you and move on to the next one.
Now, the next match was the other Invitational, the Chaos Invitational, and I want to add Chaos being the #1 show in EWE. To all you Ladies' Night fans out there, this was for a shot at the Mid-Eastern or the All-American Championship Winner's Choice. This was actually a very good match, in my opinion. First one in the hat was Vespertine again. That was a filler role play, admitted. Second one was, well, admittingly, everyone thought it was Law entering into the match, but it turns out it's his protege, Adam Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, kind of an awkward group because you had the Archer Cashmere debuted as well. I guess Leon's cousin.
Yeah.
It turned out as a joke between Mark and I guess Mark just kind of went for it because he told me he was showing up for it, and he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna debut as Archer," and I said, "No, you're not." And then, sure enough, about 5 minutes later, roleplay went up. So there you have it. And then also, a couple guys that I thought could have won it but didn't post more roleplays. I thought, of course, Chris with Buzz. He's always one of my favorites. I thought he could have pulled it off, but only I think it ended up between 3 people that only showed with 3 roleplays. So.
Well, actually, it was 2, Vespertine.
Or 2, yeah, thank you.
And, yeah, I will say Buzz has become quickly a favorite character of mine. I've always been a big fan of the cynical role plays. And this is something he's actually done pretty well, a lot of times the cynical role plays blend the OOC and the IC stuff that's out of character and in character for you non-EFED. I don't know why someone would not know. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There are actually a lot of people these days, John, that don't know that, which is kind of strange. But,
that's true.
But I think one of the biggest drawbacks for writers is when they blend the out-of-character and in-character stuff to the point where you don't know where the character ends and the handler begins. But I think Buzz's cynicism is actually very much in character. It makes a lot of sense. And the best heels, in my opinion, are the ones that can find justification for why they act the way they do. And I think the fact that he downplays any title under the Undisputed Championship, yet is still going to go for the All-American title, I think that's hilarious. So,
yeah, I like it. It's nice. It's a nice touch, and him and I, we pick each other's brains a lot, like you and I do. And I've kind of guided him in a sense of, which he doesn't need it because he's a veteran, just like you and I. But just kind of guided him on what the EW judges are looking for, and I think that's really helped him out a lot.
I tend to agree. We will go into, we just mentioned also, of course, Adam Campbell, which is, of course, the return of one of our good friends, Luke, using Law as a manager. Law, of course, being a former Undisputed Champion himself. I was always a fan of Law roleplays. Of course, when I came into EWE in 2010, he was the general manager of, what was it, not Heatwave, or was it Heatwave?
Maybe.
Explosion. I'm sorry, Explosion.
Heatwave's a pre-show, I think.
Huh?
Heatwave is a pre-show, I think.
Well, yeah, but Heatwave is a pre-show. It was Explosion and Chaos, because I think Jake was handling Chaos at the time. I was drafted to Explosion, and a lot of fun. I thought he did a great job on that. His role plays here were very strong. I think the biggest drawback for me was that I think there was a little too much Law and not enough Adam Campbell.
Yeah, I agree with that because, like you said, I kind of skimmed through these. I only read Chris's fully through, and I thought Law had just shown up. I didn't know it. I didn't even know Adam Campbell was his protege, and until you mentioned it actually on our last show. So I had to go back and look, and yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's the only drawback I have as well. And if I had to pick a winner, it would definitely be Gaz, hands down.
Yeah, and that's the one we didn't mention, Gaz handling Benjamin Ryan. I have to say, I am very thrilled to see him bring this character back. Obviously, he is now part of the Keenan family, which is something I love to death, and I've been very much enjoying bringing Arn Anderson in. But like you with Chris, I've kind of been able to guide Gaz a little bit. Jokingly, he calls me, he said he was looking up to me as a writer, kind of looking to me for advice, and not that he needs it, because he is a tremendous writer, but one drawback that he's always had, and he even admits it, is that he loses his drive when he runs out of ideas. And fortunately, it's just like you and I are able to bounce ideas off each other, I've been kind of able to help steer the passion he has for writing into a character. And I think this incarnation, like I enjoyed Benjamin Ryan in the past, but I kind of like the more, I don't want to say, he's not as goth, he's not as dark, and I think that's actually worked to the benefit of the Benji character. And plus, the fact that he talks about what we joked about of him being a Subway sandwich artist, the fact that he made that part of the character's history is amazing. That is a tremendous way to, in my opinion, taking something small and making it something that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah, I always also always thought that BJ was Benjamin Ryan. So nice to know that it was not.
Yeah, Gaz is doing great. I agree. I think he takes that match hands down. I shouldn't say hands down, but I mean the Adam Campbell role plays were also very good. But I think his were just a little bit better, and I also think he's handling Heenan very well as well. Not that it's hard to do a Bobby Heenan. I mean, if you watch any of his stuff, you get a pretty good idea of where that man came from.
Oh yeah, just watch the little '92 Royal Rumble.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we did a top 10 list. John, you posted that up. We were discussing that this morning. As a matter of fact, before I went to work, I was watching the '92 Rumble. So
it's always good to start your day with wrestling.
Oh, and like you, I can quote that thing basically from start to finish.
I love it, man.
Oh. You just tried to lift the Undertaker. He did not.
He did not.
Oh God. I don't want to get into a big tangent about this, but how great is basically? I think even people laugh at me when I say this, that was not Flair in his prime. That was Flair technically out of his prime, but Flair at 41, 42 years old was probably the greatest thing going, and his WWF run at that time was just amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Even it was showcased in the international title battle royal.
Yeah.
In EWE.
Thank you very much. Yeah, going on our 2-year anniversary of that, by the way.
Wow.
One of my actually outside of the stuff we've written together, John, that is probably my favorite match I've ever done.
Well, it was like 9,000 words. So.
Yeah. and where else can you have a Coke can as an entrant in the match? Come on.
That's very true.
Moving on, we have the EWE Televiv Vixen Championship Scramble with Summer Rae, Sasha Banks, Stealth Elf, Christy Hemme, AJ Lee, and that was a kind of a interesting match. I really expected the people to show up, and they didn't. Which I never understood that, John. I mean, I've always been, if I have a title shot, I don't care if it's a Mid-Eastern, a television, Televixen, whatever, you show up. Why would you blow off an opportunity like that?
It's very true, and I did not read any role plays to this match, I'll be completely honest. Just because of none of the characters in it really interest me. Obviously, Christy Hemme, I think Scar runs her, right?
I believe so, yes.
I believe so. So anything Scar writes, most of the time I'll read. I respect her a lot as a writer, but anybody else in that match doesn't really grab my attention, so...
Yeah, it really was not. The only one that actually did 2 role plays was Stealth Elf.
Yeah.
Although, I will say this, I think a Televixen run for that character, I don't mind that character that much when it's focused on the match. When it's doing the fantasy stuff, I mean, of course the whole character's fantasy, but to me there's a line between character development and just being boring. And I know that might be a little harsh, but John, I know you feel the same way at times. It's like when we used to read some of the Sonic ones that had nothing to do with the match, you know?
Well, I mean, I gave JC some advice, and I'm like, look, dude, just do your character development stuff on the do it on the general roleplay board. And I know not a lot of people's reading it, but would you rather not a lot of people read it than lose matches because of your character building? So that was kind of my advice for him, and I just don't dig the fantasy characters to a certain extent because I just come from an old school. Yeah. That's just the way that when I got into e-fetting, there were message boards and roleplay boards for the stuff JC's doing. There were Yahoo chat rooms for the stuff JC's doing. So I just don't like seeing it in wrestling.
Yeah, I agree. There's a fine line. I accept it. I definitely accept it. You have to. You can't. I mean, you can tell someone not to roleplay that way, but I'm not going to tell someone not to roleplay. But if you're going to do it, make it match relevant. That's my only thing. That's why I did enjoy the last bit of Sonic before he retired the character, where he started playing it off as a midget in a blue suit. I really did like that.
Yeah, I agree. That was okay, but again, it's just when you read an RP and it's Sonic the Hedgehog, I just kind of tune out. I mean, it can be great writing, but the character just kind of overshadows that. I just
Sure.
can't help. I can't get by it. I've tried to let it go, and I can't.
Yeah. It's because we're old, John. I'm like, what, 50, and you're like 45?
In e-fetting years, yeah. In that case, Mike is like 90. So.
Gotta take a shot at Mike one way or another. Moving on, we had the Shining Star Championship, Trish Stratus versus Lita. This, not much to say. Trish was a no-show here. I think it's pretty obvious that we just, Jay ran out of time. So.
Well, yeah. I think 21 role plays to do. So, I mean, that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen to the best of us. I couldn't pull off 21 role plays in however many days. I just, I couldn't do it. I could barely pull off the 8 I did.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think it was really a concern. Obviously, it wasn't a concern for him. So, congratulations to Lita, the new Shining Star Championship. Chad, as a writer, I think has come a long way, but I'm really not thrilled with the direction he took Mickie James. But more on that here shortly. We'll get into that here in a little bit. As a matter of fact, we'll get into it in our next match, the EWE Divas Tag Team Championship.
Man, what a segue.
Yeah, I'm better than I thought. The Frost Elves. English 101, Elves. E-L-V-E-S, not E-L-F-S. The Frost Elves versus...
I can't say anything like that or I'm the bad guy, but you can say it.
Oh, because... I don't know why it is. It's because people like me, John. I don't know. It's because I don't have your accent.
That's true. I'm just a prick, though, so...
Yeah, I mean... I lost my train of thought. Versus Hardcore Satisfaction versus Calista Leon and the Mystery Partner. Pretty interesting match. I actually really enjoyed the Missouri RP here. I think that Mike, as we've talked about before, I think Mike's character base has focused more on this character than anything else. Obviously, he's kind of set White Tiger back a little bit. Although I did make the joke, I said, I bet you I will take a point off every time he mentions Missouri's parents in the role play, and we got 2 lines in, and I automatically took a point off, joking, of course. But yeah, he mentioned Android 18 and White Tiger 3 lines in or something like that. So I was one of the judges on this match. I really enjoyed that RP, kind of showcasing the different champions and what it means to be a champion. And the funny part is that what he talked about in character is kind of how I feel out of character. I think people don't realize what it really means to hold the belt in a Fed, and I don't think it matters if you're the Undisputed Champion, if you're the Mid-Eastern Champion, or what. You have a belt, and it's respectable. And the reason it's respectable is because you make it respectable.
Yep. Absolutely. It's just, I'm not gonna break the train of thought talking about titles, but I'm gonna go back to Mizor for a second. I remember a couple of weeks ago when we did this, I talked about probably my favorite Mike, going to be my favorite Mike character, and it has been here lately. I think he's better with Mizor than really anybody else right now, and that includes Kelsey Parr. So I think he's come a long way with that character, and anytime you can feel a character as a writer, you can really write well with them, and I can feel that Mike really can feel writing for Mizor.
Yeah, there's a certain aspect, an intangible, if you will, and I know we talked about in the show that never was, apparently.
Yeah.
But you look at, for example, Leon Kashmir, and when you read the Leon character, you can feel the passion behind the writing, and you can feel the pleasure that you have writing that character.
Yeah.
For me, it's the same with Dutch Clark. I'm pretty sure people can feel what I'm writing, and I enjoy writing them. I really legitimately do. And that's what I get from Missouri. I don't get that from... I did get it from White Tiger during Anniversary X, but that was like the only time I felt it from White Tiger in a long time.
I agree with that, yeah. And it's just kind of, sometimes it becomes a chore to write as somebody, and we're going to get to that, I'm sure, when we talk about Triple H and Derek Daniels. But yeah, when it becomes a chore to write as somebody or write period, you just kind of need to hang it up. Sometimes you can write through it, and sometimes it feels like a chore because you got writer's block and you can write through it. But then again, sometimes it's you just can't do it anymore. You can't force it. It's got to come natural.
I totally agree with you. I think one of the biggest, well, again, we'll get more into it. You're right with the Triple H thing, but I'll save this thought for when we get there because there is a lot more we could talk about. But again, his partner Stealth Elf, I thought did a pretty good role play too. I like that both characters actually put over each other's partners. In tag team role plays, that's something I think is missing in a lot of tag teams per se because I've always based, like, you have individual scores for role plays, but I also tend to give a little bit more points each way if the two characters are able to link up well. That's why I think, like, Jay and I as Charismatic Fury, you and I as Style and Pride, et cetera, you and Abdul as Royalty, I think you guys really mesh well off each other, and you can see that in the writing. You could actually read both back-to-back and feel the link between them.
Yeah. And that even happened on the on the pay-per-view between Abdul and I, which I know we'll get to that again later on down the line. But Stealth Elf and Mizori both have that connection where they're kind of the same. I don't want to say timid, but I kind of do want to say timid. They're both that kind of same character, and they mesh well with each other, with Mizori having a little more confidence and trying to teach that confidence to Stealth Elf.
I definitely agree. Hardcore Satisfaction, I really was not a big fan of either one. I mean, we'll go into Mickie James first. One of the biggest problems I have right now, as we mentioned on the last show, I really like the direction that Shad took Mickie at Anniversary X. I thought that coming off of the split, with Alexis Lurie, I thought that there was a lot of passion to what he was writing. I thought he had a fresh direction. But here we are, 3 months later, 4 months later, and now we've got, and we'll get into more of Mickie in the next set of RPs and the Money in the Bank, but for this one in particular, the issue I have is that there is a point between fantasy and reality. And when I look at the flirty stuff with Trish and Mickie, I don't feel it's real at all. I mean, and I don't mean this as an insult, but I've been in many, well, God, that makes me sound like a whole, I guess I am. I've been in several relationships. I've, been in some committed stuff. I've had friends that were lesbians. blah, 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 blah. I have never seen a relationship the way he writes it outside of either first night of honeymoon or in soap operas, because it doesn't feel real to me, and that takes me out of the writing. Do you feel that at all? Do you kind of see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's a relationship for the sake of the relationship and to write it instead of a true relationship. So it's kind of weird. I mean, anyway, I'm not, because it's lesbians or whatever, that doesn't bother me. I don't care about anything about that. But I mean, it's just like you said. It just kind of feels awkward. It doesn't feel real, and you want to grab your reader with something they can relate to, and obviously nobody's relating to that.
Now, the match talk, on the other hand, was very solid. I thought that the white meat babyface promo was excellent. So it's like I'm very mixed on this. It's like you have what I consider bad character development, but then you have phenomenal promo. So it's really a catch-22. So and we'll get a little bit more into that in the Money in the Bank match. And I will say this too, real quick. You mentioned relationships. I look at, and this is obviously not just my opinion, but based on judging, I look at the relationship between Christy and Dutch, and I know Abdul, and I had seen this earlier, had mentioned in the role play that I did for the Johnny match, and John, you saw this too, the third role play.
Yeah. Where
Dutch was talking to Christy and telling her what he had to do. He was saying that he felt the emotion of that in so many words, that there was, he understood why that was. And to me, that's actually a conversation I've had in the past. Not obviously that I was going to have to kill someone's brother or something like that, but
yeah.
I mean, but having to explain to someone I loved that I was going to have to do something that may be hurtful. And I think, I don't know, I don't know. I don't know how else to explain that. I mean, I'm sure you feel kind of the same way when you read something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just sometimes, like we talked about earlier, sometimes it feels forced.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you have to do something to connect that reader. You have to do something to bring it. You have to know your audience.
Yeah. I completely agree.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah, it's like an intangible, and
Yeah.
it's
either you have it or you don't. I mean, a lot of the times, unless you can find a certain niche.
the only other way I can explain it is it's almost like it's something that you have to have experienced in order to write about. That's the only other way, and again, I don't know how Shad lives his personal life. I don't care to know. That's not my business, but I don't feel from my personal experience, and obviously John and several other people, I know I've talked to Scar about this too. From our experiences, we don't feel where this is coming from. So that's enough of that. We can go on about this for hours. But anyway, Trish was pretty much just a straight shoot promo. You can, I think again we had a time constraint thing. Not bad, not great. Callista Leon, John. Here's the thing. There's spelling and grammar. I've been told, and John, I know you were in the conversation when this happened, that spelling and grammar shouldn't count in role plays. We were told this.
Yeah, we were arguing about this one night, actually.
And
I forget who all was in the conversation. But
I don't remember. And I know you and I were on the same page, as was several others, but I'm sorry, but when you have spelling errors and grammatical errors that forgetting letters and commas and periods. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying John's perfect. I'm not saying a lot of people are perfect. But when you could take 5 minutes and put it in a spell check, you can go on Google, type in spell check, and you're going to find free programs you can run. There's grammar checks on Google now, as a matter of fact. So I don't understand why John can't do that or refuses to do that. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and it's not even like, me and JC and I were arguing about this one time as well, and he's like, well, words I put in there are words, that aren't misspelled, they're just in the wrong place, and that was, totally not true, but I just agreed with it, whatever. but it's just words that are completely spelled wrong, letters in different places. It's just, I don't know if people are lazy, do they not respect, their own writing or what, but it's just hard for me to believe that you can't just, even the slightest proof of your work, I know it's a 3,000 word role play, God forbid you have to look at it for another 5 minutes to proofread it. God forbid you have to do that to take time out of your busy day to proofread your freaking role plays.
And what the thing that bothers me the most is that I think John is actually a talented writer. I legitimately do. I think he is too. We'll get to that when we talk about Psychotica. Oh yeah, and I think in the Callista character, even though I think Callista and what's her name, Eva, have kind of blended a bit, which we'll get to that too. But I think he actually does tell some pretty interesting stories.
Yeah,
for lack of a better word, but. I find myself being pulled out of the role plays. It wasn't horrible here in this one as much as some of his other ones. I did like one of the lines, and I thought it was very funny. There was just some horrible comments, like her having to force her maid to drink her own urine. I thought that was just great. That's a great heel move. And well, that's saying, that's stuff like that makes him an interesting writer for sure. So. I don't know.
People. The argument is that it's not supposed to be written. It's supposed to be spoken. But tell me how many wrestlers on WWE, TNA, whatever you want to watch, how many of those guys have grammar errors that's not a part of the character when they speak? Just tell me. They're not idiots.
Oh, I agree.
They're not idiots. They know how to talk. And, and even if it is talking, you need to have, and I know I'm the worst for it because I'm so Southern, it's not even funny, but you have to, have a certain basis, and or people's not going to take you seriously, and even if it was real wrestling, which is what we talk about.
Yeah, I agree. Again, for what it was, I thought the RP was pretty good. It actually had a lot of passion and desire, and if you can get past the spelling errors. Now, of course, we'll get to where I really ran into some issues, which was his other role plays, but he had the mystery partner, which I feel was actually worse with the spelling errors. When I have to stop reading because I can't follow it, that's an issue. And I'm sorry, but I don't care what anyone says. If you are pulled out of the reading because of grammatical errors or because you have to go over and reread things several times, that's bad. That's really bad.
And especially if people just keep talking about it, then eventually you need to. It's not something that people are picking on you over. It's something you need to change. It's like if the judges keep telling you to do something and you don't judge and you just continue not to win, then it's your own fault for not wanting to change something. But to each his own, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not. And again, the role play was okay. I didn't feel as good as Callista. It wasn't bad. But yeah, that's where I see a big issue. And John, you hit the nail right on the head. If you could take 25 minutes to code it, why can't you take the 5 minutes to and again, I'm not saying it has to be perfect. My role plays aren't perfect. Your role plays aren't perfect.
No, far from it.
Lord knows my biggest issue is I'll get flowing and I forget a word or something, or you'll use like 7 commas.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, it's not enough to where it takes people out of the writing, and that's I know you're an English minor, I'm an English major, and I'm not saying we're sticklers, but God, there's a point where you got to make a decision. So Anyway, enough on that. So yeah, my prediction on that was the Frost Elves walking away with the championships.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Moving on, we are going to be looking at the next match, which was excuse me. The Mid-Eastern Championship, Eli the Kid taking on Cliff Morgan. Pretty interesting match, I have to say.
Yeah, between two very interesting characters.
Yeah, both of these characters, both handlers, I should say, are actually part of our group, the MMSW. Eli recently, and Scar's been with us probably about a year now almost?
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm very proud. I think both of these characters have made leaps and bounds. Eli, just in the last couple of months that he's been kind of listening to us, he's got grown a little bit more of a backbone, which I like. You were mentioning earlier about him calling you out.
Yeah, in the first role play, which we'll get to that in Money in the Bank, but yeah, he's come a little bit of a ways now, and I think it's going to take him a couple more months, but I think it's there. I really think it's there. That being said, I think the Cliff character is really emerging from just a kind of a blowout character for Scar for a character that Scar I think can legitimately challenge for a undisputed title in maybe a couple months.
I agree with that too. I think Cliff has a lot of potential. The role plays here, Eli's were pretty straightforward. I didn't think they were as strong as what he did in the other match. I still think they were decent, and I think he's still, in my opinion at least, I think he's still getting used to kind of pushing the boundaries of this character. And I do like the analogy you made about him always wearing his mask. You made that in the show that never was. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, I'm like, does he take a shower in his mask? Does he, when does he take the mask off? Because I'm pretty sure in one scene, like, he was coming out of the bathroom and he had his mask on or something.
It'd be funny. Like, I had a girlfriend that I dated once, and she was kind of like into, the role-playing mask thing. This guy would be perfect for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Cliff role plays were great. One thing I mean, not 5-star classics, but one thing I really did like about it, there was a good story, a good flow. And this might sound like a small thing, but obviously it's something I pick up on. Scar had asked me about Cliff calling Dutch during his ordeal. If you have read the role plays, he gets pulled over by the cops or security, and he's trying to get a hold of Dutch for help. And the thing is that she made it where Dutch was not answering his phone, which makes a lot of sense if you look at Dutch's role play.
Yeah.
So she's got all these missed messages. Little things like that, I think, where you're able to jump from role play to role play. I know, John, you do it a lot, or the continuity. I can never say this. Continuity. Thank you. Continuity between role plays and storylines, I think, is really a strong suit. Cliff did that very well here. I know Leon and several others do as well. But, yeah, I picked Cliff Morgan to take the win in this match.
Yep, Cliff, not by a landslide, but pretty healthy win, I think.
Yeah. Jumping into the next match was the Ladies' Choice Ladder match, and this was, doggy, this was a long match. We had Mickie James, Josie Wales, Michelle McCool, Eva De La Cruz, Jessica Sunshine Fugit, said it right, and Jessie O'Ryan. This match. I was one of the judges on this match, so I will try not to do too much in the spoiler department. I was a big fan. I'll just go down the line. Josie was who I picked. I'll come right out and say it. I'm not going to talk about the other judges. I'll just talk about myself. I thought the Josie story arc here was one of the strongest I've ever seen her do. It's the first time I've ever given a Scar roleplay a 9, and I believe that she has developed this character for what was originally just a sidekick to Angela into what I consider possibly her strongest female character at this point.
Hands down, my winner for this match. I didn't judge it, but hands down, my winner. I don't really think there's anybody close into the quality that Scar wrote. I don't think there's, and I'm not saying that because Scar is, part of our group, because, as well as I do, there's a while there where I didn't agree with Scar being in our inner circle, but she, her and I have a really good relationship now, and I pick her brain on a lot of stuff, and she picks my brain on a lot of stuff, so, I honestly think it's she's one of my favorite characters now, and, Scar told me to read some of with Josie, and I really, really liked it.
Yeah. I think we just want to get in her pants more than anything. So, that's...
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Yeah, why not? I'm single. Anyway, no, I agree with you. And, I'm glad that she has come along. And anyone that knows me knows I don't pick favorites. Believe me, I've judged against John on numerous occasions and against Scar. But, no, I give credit where credit is due. I thought this was great. The second RP was nearly as good. She continued the arc. I liked kind of her with the family and then the mom having cancer. Again, we talked about earlier, real passion, and it seems like this is something that, there was some... I'm not saying that maybe she had that in her life, maybe she didn't, but she conveyed the emotions behind it. And as someone that's been in a position where someone I cared about was dying, I can understand where the writing was coming from. And that's a strong suit. The third RP, basically just a ladies' night roleplay, but I think the first two were so strong it really didn't matter what she came up with.
Yeah.
Third one, as long as it was a full RP, and going down the line. I'm sorry, John. I mean, I'm sure you probably felt the same way.
Oh yeah, like I said, she is my clear-cut winner in this. It's not even close in my opinion.
Yeah. Going down the line, and now we get to talk a little bit more about Mickie here, the other story arc. Mickey's role plays brought back Alexis Lurie in this again, and John, I think you put it best. I'm tired of this arc. I feel like every time we start to get into where, wow, I really like where Mickey's going, now it's, God, why are we back here again? It's like we just keep making circles.
Yep, not really progressing anything. I know the Mickie character progresses, but as she progresses, I guess it's just kind of a security blanket, because Shad had really good scores against my Sid with that story arc, and maybe thought that he would bring it back and try to recreate some of that magic, but that is a huge no in my opinion. When you're coming up with ideas and stuff, don't try to rehash anything that you lost with before, even if you think you can make it better. And I don't know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a fan of it, and it's been rehashed so much that I just really tune out. And I thought Shad, is kind of come together as a writer, but just needs to kind of find his niche with his ideas and his story arc and where he's going with Mickie, and that's not helping any.
I completely agree. I think as a writer, he's very solid. Again, the promo stuff was pretty good. I liked, in fact, in his second role play, which was probably, to me, the highlight of his 3, there was a scene where Alexis technically goes out to talk to the crowd, and she kind of morphs into Mickie and blah, blah, blah. But That was really great. I liked the confusion that Mickey's getting cheered. I got a kick out of that. I thought that was good. But the whole, God, the whole fighting the bad self, I was part of the angle, and I mentioned this in text to Scar. Delilah and Christy, and I'm sure you remember that, John, was done 3 years ago, and I think it was done a lot better than what was done here. And Shad was in the Fed when that angle happened. So to me, it's like, okay, I haven't forgotten that it's been done before, and there was no unique twist. There was nothing that set it apart, in my opinion. So it was like I was reading the same role plays again, just not as good.
Yeah, I 100% agreed. I mean, I kind of touched on it. I think enough now, or I'll get on my soapbox again. So
yeah. Now this is where we started hitting a bit of and we're going back to John. Eva, this was, my God, horrible. I'm sorry, and I'm not. I'm sorry, John. This is not a personal shot at all. I don't mean that. I found it strange that there was no real build in this role play, but there was just some glaring holes that, again, if you can't sit through it and read it, you've got a problem, and that's how I feel. The character is okay. I mean, the settings were kind of bland, although I think EWA must be either on the Spice Channel or some sort of network, because not only did Eva get naked on air, but also drop the F-bomb, so uncensored. I don't know. That's just a pet peeve of mine. If you're going to cuss, I think you should censor it in these things, but, a lot of people are guilty of that, but no, I think
it depends on, because some stuff that we role play obviously isn't going to take place on, technically take place on EW television.
Oh, I agree.
It's really a weird thing to tackle when you think about it, because you kind of don't, like with Cash. I don't acknowledge that the camera's following around, but obviously something's there filming or something's there doing the promo. It's just a weird thing to tackle, and I've done it. I've seen a lot of feds where people do different things, and then I know in one role play I did have him acknowledge that the cameras were following him around, but it was for a documentary. So, it's a really weird thing to tackle.
There's a lot of gray area there. I think with what bugs me about this one is that it's very obvious she's talking to the camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like I'll use Leon as an example. If you're doing your flashback kind of thing, it's obvious the camera's not there watching the flashback.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell that from the writing. But if he's sitting there talking directly to the camera, then obviously there is some sort of, So anyway, but I'm not going to give out too much about this. The role plays themselves were okay. Again, I really felt like Callista and Eva have really started to blend. In fact, except maybe that Callista's a little bit more psychotic, for lack of a better term, psychotica. But yeah, I mean, they were okay at best. So I don't have much else to say.
I didn't even read them, so.
Yeah. We had Jesse Orion, which, oh my God, there was something about the pictures and the match banner, and then the friend got turned into chocolate. I'm not even going to go into this.
Yeah, pass.
Yeah. Sunshine Fugit, actually pretty good. She had her toys and was playing a game, and it was kind of representing the characters. Of course, we all knew it was going to be filler. There was no other role play, so we'll leave it at that. And that's pretty much that. Again, we both chose Josie, and I think that is an obvious pick to win.
Yeah, hands down. Like I said before we started, that's my pick, and I think that I think Scar outwrote everybody by a mile in that match.
Yeah, I thought she did a great job, and I'm very proud of her. Very proud. We had the EWE Tag Team Championship, Royalty versus The Experience. John, I'll let you segue on this one because you were part of that match, and obviously you didn't get the match you had hoped for.
No, I thought the first time that Abdullah and I faced Experience, I thought it was really good. I thought it was really competitive, and obviously Abdul and I were very fired up to beat Experience because I thought our role plays were up in probably the higher 8s. If I had to guess, I haven't seen judging or don't know about judging, but I would assume that both of those, because Abdul and I have this weird thing where our characters don't really interact with each other, but they kind of do. They kind of do, but it's never seen. So nobody really knows if it's these two are best friends, but they do have one thing in common, and that's they're competitors. So that's kind of how we play it, and I enjoy playing it like that, and I don't see why it's going to change. But I wish Mike would have shown, but nonetheless, I'll take the win, I guess.
Yeah, 2 strong RPs. I do like the dynamic of Alessandro and Leon. It's much different than traditional tag teams.
Yeah.
But then again, I think that's what's kind of interesting about it. If you look at like the last 4 years, and look at the strongest tag teams, you always kind of have weird dynamics. Like the Sons of Liberty, for example. You have Cliff, who's kind of the adventurous, good-looking, whatever, and then you have CM Punk, who's kind of the rebel, So it's kind of there's a dynamic there. Dutch and Derek, for example, that was a very unique love-hate relationship. Blossom into them becoming best friends, just super competitive best friends.
I thought that was a lot like the Step Brothers movie.
Yeah.
That's always how I loved, when I would role play for Derek, I would always think about Step Brothers. I would always think about, all right, he really hates him, but I want him to blossom into this, friendship, and that's kind of what kind of inspired me to do that. But yeah, this is another, I think it's kind of overdone, but I think Alessandro or Abdul and I are doing a very good job of kind of mixing it up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's why I still think to this day that if, I know it's just kind of funny to say this, but I like the tag teams that you could keep going with. I think of Dutch and Derek, we proved it at Anniversary X, but, here we are 4 years after we formed, and I think our role play at Anniversary X was just as strong, if not stronger, than when we were champions.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I think the best tag teams, I also look at Dutch and Christie, of course. Obviously, that was a super strong with the, being husband and wife kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think Royalty has been a great tag team, and I'm looking forward to see who's going to be able to put a stop to them, if anyone.
Yeah, it'll be fun, and me and not only are Abdul and I trying to retain the tag titles, we're trying to outdo each other.
Yeah.
We both want to get the pin. We both want to be we both want to carry the team. So I think that also us role playing against each other is kind of deadly for whoever we face.
Going into the next match, this is one that, John, again, I'll let you spearhead on, the no-holds-barred careers match, Triple H versus Dynamic Derek Daniels, a match that I very much did not want to be a part of as far as a judge, and I opted out of because there was just no way I could end the career of arguably someone that I have been a part of since the very conception of the character and one of my all-time favorite characters that you've handled.
Yeah, I wish it could have been more. I really come out the gate like I thought, that Jay may have, hit a home run with Triple H, but after his first one, I was like, I don't really need a blockbuster for my second one, and I had a lot more planned for my second one, but I just wanted to kind of get it over with. And with Triple H's second, it just felt like he had given up at that point. It kind of had a real sad feel to it. I kind of felt sorry for Triple H that, selling that merch one more time. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely did feel like a swan song, if you will. For those of you who have not read Derek's first role play, I consider that probably one of the strongest role plays from that character I've ever seen. I think Derek's roleplay was really phenomenal. The fact that you kind of flash back to his past in a way, you really don't see that too often. You see flashbacks of how people became wrestlers or this, that, so on and so forth, but the fact that you were able to sort of combine other sports and just that he never was really part of his own destiny, that really showed me something different, and that's what made me happy.
Well, the reason, that was my first eFed character that was my first create, besides John North, which was myself. But Derek kind of lived the fantasy that I wanted to live at that time, which is I wanted to be, I was an athlete in high school. I wasn't good enough to play college, but I was a 3-sport athlete, and I wanted to play. I knew it wasn't a dream of mine to play on a collegiate level, but I was just kind of living vicariously through Derek. So, I thought, what what if he's never had a chance to really have a say in his own destiny? And that was the first role play that I thought of as soon as Jay pitched the match to me. So I've been sitting on that a while, and it's just something that and when you sit on something that long, it's so easy to write. And that role play took me about an hour and a half to write because it was just everything was already set up. And it's not technically a flashback because it is, but it's not because he's got all the tapes from everything that happened.
Yeah, I definitely understand, and I was such a big fan of that. I remember a while back we were talking, I don't know if maybe it was on the Anniversary X show or maybe it was a show before that, we were talking about the characters being extensions of ourselves. And, it's like for you and Leon or for you and Derek, and it's like for me and Dutch, Dutch is kind of like me, the manic side of me, just with the volume turned way, way up. So it really came through, and I'm very happy. At least from my better judgment, I think that you're definitely going to see Derek still being around. And yeah, I really meant what I said. That the second Triple H role play, man, I felt in my heart, this kind of, you're right, I said like a sadness because it was like you knew this was the end.
Yeah, I felt really bad just because it just had a sad feeling to it. I just saw, Shawn Michaels kind of pouting over it. I just kind of saw that in my head, which was weird. But yeah, I mean, I wish that I wish Jay could have put up more of a fight, but I hate Triple H, and so it was okay for me. Not the Triple H character in EWE per se, but I don't think Jay's been too good with him for a couple years now, so. I don't think it's that big of a blow.
No. The next match on the card was the EWE Divas Championship, which was Sid Vicious versus Annie Midnight Fugit. And I know this is another match, John, that you did not have the best of luck with as far as an opponent. Great role plays from Sid, very enjoyable. Sad that Mike was not able to bring it with Annie.
Yeah, quickly about my role plays. I don't even remember what my first one was about. I think it was a throwback. No, the second was a throwback to the WrestleMania ball that I introduced. But whatever. Regardless, I went on record of saying this in the first show, which didn't get aired. But now, I will say that I thought Mike had a chance of knocking me off had he had to. I don't know how judging went on that. I don't know how the scores went on that, but I really felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked where he was going, and, hopefully there's another match down the road. I know I asked you this on the other show, and maybe we can get the answer again. Do you see yourself bringing Sid, though, to the Chaos brand?
It's really just going to depend. It's going to depend on, who can knock me off as Divas Champion. It's also going to depend on the Ladies' Choice briefcase. So, it's a number of things that I don't know. I thought about entering her in the King of the Ring or King of Extreme, but I just don't want that workload right now, so I don't think I will. But it's just going to depend on a lot of things when I bring her over. But it automatically built it in with the Shield, with the breaking up of the Shield. It automatically built up a feud for Sid to kind of get her feet wet on Chaos.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see her debut over there. And as you well know, I love the Sid character. I think it's very interesting. I love the dynamic there, too. So, yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Moving on, we have the Money in the Bank Elimination Chamber. Another long match. Christy Chaos versus Eli the Kid versus Psychotica versus Thunder Dragon versus Kelsey Parr versus the world's greatest jobber, Dustin Jobber. A fantastic, phenomenal competitor, if I may say so myself. Who handles that guy?
I don't know. He's good.
Yeah, he is. Really good role plays. I want to touch base, before I get into my own stuff, we'll touch base on some of the other characters. And yes, if in case any of our listeners do hear the little Skype going off in the background, we do have the owner of the Fed. Several of the people are talking to us about Behind Enemy Lines, giving us some insight, so we are trying to incorporate that as we're going. Maybe one of these days, Johnny, we'll have a call-in on the show. That'd be fun.
Yeah, Jay needs to grow a set and hop on. I'll call him out. I don't care. Listen to me. If I can get on if I can do this for a living, then I'm sure Jay can get on here and talk about what he loves to do.
It would be nice. I'd like to see him come on when he gets a chance. But Yeah, I know the first one I want to talk about is Eli the Kid. I know we mentioned him earlier. I thought the arc here was good, and the one thing that I just laughed at was he called out the undisputed champion of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I judged this match, and I literally started laughing out loud when I saw that, and I was like, hey, I mean, the kid's got guts. I mean, say what you will, but, it wasn't an obvious call-out. It was something real subtle. I know John made a big deal about it, like it was, all about it. Was his role play was all about it, but it really wasn't. He mentioned it one time, and then kind of, and what would your, wrestler do, or what would your, character do if the undisputed champion just kind of at your character? It would it should make you mad, and it did make Eli mad, and he mentioned it in his role play. It was good. I loved it.
Completely agree. I don't think it made him mad out of character, of course, but I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean, let's clarify that for a second. But no, I was very proud of that, and I agree. I think one of the things that is missing, we talk about people that automatically think they deserve top shots, and they automatically, but Eli's not like that. But I always thought Eli was kind of meek in as much as not really getting noticed, and he saw an opportunity to better himself. And yeah, maybe you will batter him in a match, maybe you will outright him, but at least he's got the gumption to say, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm not just going to let you push me around.
Yeah, and he doesn't want it handed to him. I respect that, because other people do want things handed to them, and it's not the way I roll.
No, obviously I was very fortunate to be able to teach you, and I know how I grew up learning e-fetting, and it was always about, who the best rider was, becoming the best rider, and doing what you had to do to get to that top spot. I as we've talked about before, I can't stand people that want, you to no-show or want you just to lay down. Oh, it's for a better story, it's for better this. Well, maybe it might be, or in your eyes it is, but at the same time, aren't you kind of cheating yourself by not giving your best or not being the best? I don't know. I think that if you're going to be at the top of the game, you really should be the top of the game.
Yeah, you should get to the top. If you're at the top, it's not by a fluke. If you make it, if you win the top title, and even in EOU, if you win the top title, it's not by a fluke. It's because, you're good. You're good. People, I get hammered on a lot because the people that don't know me well say that, I only get it done in EOU. Well, I've been successful, not to toot my own horn, but as Roddy Piper would say, why not toot your own horn? Because you know the tune better than anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've been successful in everywhere I've been. So, what are we even talking about? I lost track. Toot my own horn.
We were talking about Eli calling you out.
Yes, exactly. So Eli is the man.
I will say, I do agree with you, and I always do laugh. I've had a couple people mention that. They're like, well, what have you done outside of EWE? And I start laughing, because I'm like, you do realize I've been doing this for 2 decades now.
Yeah.
But I was role-playing 10 years before EWE was even open, but...
Yeah.
No, I mean, and again, that it goes to show you, I mean, if you look at a guy like John, I'll use you as an example, you're a successful writer, period, not just as an e-fetter. And I think a lot of your best e-fetters are also good writers. And, like me, I'm in broadcasting for a talk show. I write for a magazine, and, I do a lot of bowling reviews and things like that for my contract with Motive. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. So, I think it goes hand in hand. And again, I think the only way you can improve is to say, you know what, I'm not going to take it on a silver platter. I'm going to address what's been put at me. You kind of gave him a bone, and he kind of ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see that he read it and and responded to it in a way that he didn't know. He had no idea that I was going to read that. That's what I like about that. He had no idea, which I love. So so Eli, and then also I know Kelsey was kind of out of the match because Mike lost internet.
Yeah.
But
that one was
extra out of there.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Psychotica, dark as always.
Yeah, I thought the first one was good. The first one I literally started reading, and I was like, wait, is this really John for a moment? Just because I know his style, and it was kind of switched up a little bit. But his second was like we talked about earlier. He just jumped straight into match talk, and that was it. Like there was no build whatsoever. I thought his second and his third should have been one role play, and then he should have did a third on its own. But and that's why I feel like he didn't do enough to win the match. But if all his Psychotic RPs were like his first, then I think he could have pulled that out. But yeah, nonetheless, it kind of drug on. Kind of repeated himself a bunch with John. Kind of has a problem with some of his role plays, and so that takes care of I think 3 of them.
Yep, agree with that.
Or 2 of them.
Well, then you had Thunder Dragon. That's another one that unfortunately did not get the gist of what needed to be out there.
Yeah, I think JC got a job or something and can't role play and have a job at the same time.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to pass judgment. I mean, if sometimes
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You got a job and you can't juggle both. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Christy, I thought I thought her last 2 role plays were really good. I wasn't a big fan of her first though.
No, and I knew that maybe the first one, even though it was just match talk, would get a bit overjudged just because it was Money in the Bank, and on pay-per-views people have a tendency of overjudging things like that. I gave it a really low score just because you gotta. It's just match talk. There's nothing else. But I thought the second one, and the third one. The second one is one of my favorite Christy role plays in a long time. One of my favorite Jay role plays in a long time. And then the third one kind of went right along with it. It was a little lower score than the second one, but I didn't go in the direction of Christy in judging that match, but I thought that if Christy does win, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, gee, John, who did you go with in that match?
I actually went with Dustin Jobber. I honestly thought, and we've talked about it on here before, that comedy is it's the hardest thing to write, because what I think's funny isn't funny to everybody else. What you think funny isn't funny to everybody else. You may think it's the most hilarious thing in the world, and people get offended when they write a comedy role play and nobody thinks it's funny. But it's the hardest thing to capture a wide audience on. And I thought not only that, but I thought that Dustin Jobber had I almost said Dutch Jobber, by the way. I thought that Dustin Jobber had the 3 most consistent role plays, and that's what it takes to win, consistency.
Yeah, well, thank you. I had a lot of fun. I know.
Also followed a story arc, so that's important to me too.
I had a lot of fun writing them. The concept of Dustin being flipped out on steroids was a kind of a fun.
My God,
that was a fun idea.
And Scott Steiner ended up being his lifting coach, which is hilarious.
And I'm keeping that, by the way. You got Kincaid and Steiner. But I was asked, I think John or someone said it on the chat board box on or whatever we call it now, the chat board on the Fed. They asked me where do I come up with these ideas? And the honest truth is that I basically think of the most ridiculous settings possible, and I write them. That's the only way I can explain it. It's just, it's like, I remember I did the one role play a long time ago where Dustin turned into the Ultimate Warrior for a match.
Yeah.
And it was like, someone was like, well, where'd you come up with that? I'm like, I did. And I think for the most part, when it comes to comedy, for me at least, I'm a big fan of random humor. And I think that is probably the easiest to at least for me, it's the easiest to transfer to the audience. It's when you get into too elaborate cerebral jokes, is when I was an English major, I promise you. That is when you start losing your audience. And I think that's where a lot of people that try doing comedy is that they try doing too much too fast. If you hit a lot of quick, fast, comedy spots and stuff that's ridiculous, like the joke that I know a lot of people laughed at was a slap chop joke in the second role play that I did, where I was saying slap your nuts or chop your nuts. That's a really sophomoric joke, but it's funny. It gets a chuckle, whoever you are. So that's my secret. Just write what comes into your head. I mean, if you think it's too ridiculous, write it down anyway. The worst case scenario, it doesn't work. What else can happen? Oh, and that's the other mindset. Don't be afraid to lose with a comedy character.
That's very true.
So
I won't touch comedy.
Yeah.
So that's why I respect comedy so much, is because I won't touch it. If I do a comedy role play, I'm losing.
Which is funny because I really like your John Jobber stuff.
Yeah, maybe I'm just not confident in my comedy stuff, but I just don't. No.
Moving on, we had the 3 Stages of Hell, the match that's had a year of build, Dutch Clark versus Johnny Chaos. And I'll tell you, John, I had a lot of fun writing this, and I honestly consider this some of my best work I've ever done with Dutch.
Yeah, I told you this in Scott, but one of the first role plays where I read your first, I read your second, I read your third twice, and then I went back and read them in order to. I just enjoyed them that much. It's rare, and I'm just not tooting your horn here, but it's rare to see a story like that match centric. And what I mean by that is it just encompasses and it's just talking about the match, and it's just all about the match. Like sometimes you'll see that, and they have to deal with this, and it's because, and and there's a match, and there's trash talk, and there's this. But with this one, it's like, man, this is just all circling around this match with Johnny Chaos, and that's what won it over for me. I didn't judge it, but I would have had you winning that one 9 times out of 10.
I appreciate that. I really did enjoy the arc here. I was joking around and I said that this is what happens when you give me a year to build a story. No, I really just I had this idea about incorporating Alyssa, and I went with a route. For those of you who have not read them, I mean, many of you who know me on a personal level know that I'm usually really hard on my own RPs. It's rare for me to say that I'm going to win this match.
Yeah.
And John, you'll vouch for that. I very rarely say that. I say that I did my best, but I'm usually very critical. This is one of the few times where I legitimately said, I'm not going to lose. I knew it. And I'm not sure about voting yet, but based on the feedback I've gotten so far, that seems to be, it seems to be getting really strong feedback. Which isn't to take away from the Johnny Chaos story arc. I thought his arc about him seeing the future he could have, the fun kind, giving Johnny, I thought that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, and but while Johnny's was a good direction for him to go, because Johnny has always been kind of this one-dimensional heel. That's just me personally speaking. I went against him several times, but it was nice to see him show some layers in that aspect. But I just thought, I don't know, it just felt like where yours went so smoothly together, like his was kind of just kind of where it was still match centric, but it kind of still got away from the match, if that makes sense.
I found him enjoyable. I thought my only complaint really, and this is again my personal opinion, I felt like it was a little forced towards the end. That was just me. I know I think other people might disagree with me on that, but I don't know. I kind of felt like yes, he incorporated my story arc, which is it could be good and bad. It depends on the writing. But in this case, I almost kind of felt like we were getting too much of the good Johnny Chaos too fast. That there wasn't a build into the role plays he did. And it's like I think some of the best role plays that I've read, be it even with Johnny, when he did what was it 3 years ago when of course I talk about it in my role plays when he burned down the MMSW. There was a slow burn into a desperate act like that. There was a lot of heel stuff before that, so it made sense. This I was like. I was surprised. I was surprised it was good, but again, I felt like it was kind of forced. Although the match talk was phenomenal, I will give him that, no doubt about that.
Oh, that's one of Jay's strong points for sure.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and of course now I have one thing I do find interesting is now I have a heel Jack Michaels, but oddly enough, from what people have told me, they don't see him as a heel; they see him as an anti-hero.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes like that. It just shows how it really come out to me like that's the only way he can bring out the old Dutch Clark. And I think that was kind of that's what I took out of it is hide at the end, kind of hide away the whole kidnapping a kid storyline. And that's kind of what I got out of it. He's a desperate man and not only wanting revenge on Johnny Chaos, but I kind of got like kind of reliving or living through Dutch in this WrestleMania.
That was kind of like my arc too. I'm glad you picked up on that, John. Thank you. There was like when I was writing the dialogue in the third role play, I kind of related like, okay, here's a guy who he had his last hurrah at WrestleMania 7, more or less. You know, I had a couple matches with him since then, but more or less his last hurrah was winning the Undisputed Championship from Derek Daniels, and immediately losing it because of the cash-in. And I just, and this was actually both true to the time, I was out of gas as a writer to defend it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think to some extent that kind of came out because I know I had the Thunderdome match against Johnny and I lost, and I didn't have what it took with Jack at that point to really write. So I think that kind of came out in my writing. And, you know, I knew there was always, and I don't mean this out of character, of course, this is definitely in character, but there was always a bitterness towards Johnny. And then, you know, we had the whole thing with Alessandro buying Jack Michaels, more or less, and Jack having to get the money back.
And he burned the school down.
Yeah, of course. You know, so, I mean, there's a lot to it, and the idea, like, at the end, you know, because Jack obviously got the money back after he got paid from Alessandro, and he got, you know, he's back to where, you know, better than what he was before, but there's still that piece of his history that has not been closed yet. And, living vicariously through Dutch was kind of the gist of that. And I did, one thing I thought was interesting, I did read a piece of feedback, was they liked that Joe decided not to tell Dutch. And very subtle. Now, the question is, though, did Joe not tell Dutch, or did he tell Dutch?
Oh, yeah, it leaves it, I like that.
Ooh.
You can leave it, you can go either way.
Yeah. You know, just like I wish Scar did, I wish he would, oh, wait.
That may be one of your best jokes ever on here, by the way.
Love you, Jen. So that would be a another twist. Who knows? I'm still kind of.
What? That Scar is also straight, or?
No.
That would be a cool twist.
Yeah. No, but I kind of interesting. I'm still kind of figuring out how I'm going to close this arc completely, because technically I could not write another word about this, and the arc would still be closed.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. It's just the way you, the way you wrote it, the way it was written, and it's going to be. I mean, if you ever need to go back to it, you can. It's one of those that it leaves it open.
Yeah, in theory, I can do a one shot and just say Alyssa is back with Dutch, and there's no other word of it. So, I like I said, I appreciate that, John. I really did enjoy it, and. Another role play I really enjoyed was actually in the title for title match. We had Leon Kashmir, Alessandro Quagliateri, and CM Punk, AA title and Undisputed Championship. Okay, buddy, I thought these were 9 very good role plays. I sincerely enjoyed every one. The Leon role play that really caught me, and I mentioned I really enjoyed, and I did judge this match. I love the little subtleties that you do. The scar under your eye from Dutch Park, the wearing the trunks of your father. People that have read the Leon roleplays, and obviously I've read, the matches, especially the matches I've been involved with. Obviously, there's a lot of history that people might overlook, and I love that you didn't overlook it, because everything that you mentioned has a purpose. And that's something in role-playing I think a lot of people forget about, is that the little things matter.
Well, it's something in writing as well, whether you're writing for... you're writing for a book or you're writing for a movie or whatever you're writing for. I don't know the literary term for it off the top of my head. Chekhov's gun or something like that. Is that what it's called? But anyway, the term, how it goes is you don't. If there's a rifle on the wall, the rifle better fire in the second or third chapter. If there's a rifle on the wall in the first chapter, then it better go off in the third chapter. So that's kind of how I went with, that's how I go with my writing. If something is mentioned, then it's going to come up later.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If something is in, it's going to come up later on. So that's something that I loved when I learned about it in college and in high school, that I really love to use in my writing.
Well, it definitely shined through. I thought your arc was fantastic. I loved the one another thing that sticks in my mind was the flashback. I love that you touch base on watching the cash in and again relating history. We talked about it earlier on. The history of EWE is available, and when you can use it to your advantage, it's a dangerous weapon.
Yeah, because I thought about what would Leon have thought about Alessandro cashing in, and that's kind of how I said at the end of the role play, Leon is sitting there in his living room and he's saying, if I had the briefcase, I would, and his friend said you would cash it in too, and that's exactly what Leon went on to do. So I just like connecting all the dots.
I mean, it did take him an hour and 71 minutes to. Oh wait, that's 2 hours. 2 hours and 11 minutes to beat Dutch afterwards. But no, I thought that was a very good thing. I thought Alessandro Abdul, I think, is one of the best and most overlooked writers in EWE history. As crazy as that sounds to a lot of people, I think Abdul is, as John, I believe you put it, unorthodox as anyone else I've ever seen.
Such an unorthodox style.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant style. It's really great. My drawback for him was really his first role play. I felt like we both knew, and I think it was pretty obvious to a lot of the readers, that he was trying to duplicate Leon going into WrestleMania. He challenged all of the opponents, and he was beating everyone until he ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw. Not to toot my own horn, but but obviously losing to Dutch, and it could have been, it doesn't even matter that he lost to me. He could have lost to Christie, could have lost to whoever, White Tiger. It really took, in my opinion, took the wind out of his sails in his first role play. It felt like he was really struggling to find himself again. But then, once he got that first one up, his second two, as just straight shoots going through the streets of New York and relating his path, I thought that was wonderful. I thought that was really an amazing arc, and I thought he bounced back superbly.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I thought that even through his second and third, I thought it was missing some fire that I had read in earlier role plays from him, because it's kind of like the coach that always yells at his team. You can't always yell at your team because they're not going to listen to you when you mean it when you yell. It's kind of the same thing with Alessandro. You can't always say that you're fired up to do something, because you're not going to be taken seriously after a while. And I kind of felt that in his first, but like you said, his second really started coming around. Maybe this character does want this more than anything, even though he kind of said it 1,000 times. But his second and third where it was a lot better. I'll agree. I'll give you that. But I was missing the fire from Alessandro that I've seen in the last couple of weeks.
And like I said, I mean, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but I just feel like that it killed his arc by losing, and
yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it's kind of, if you look at it from that perspective, he's the one that asked for the match.
Yeah.
So there's always the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of pointed that out to you when he asked for your match. I said, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to match what Leon has done in the last couple, months. I think that's what he's trying to build, the same resume to kind of negate that talking point from Leon. That's what I thought he was going for. I don't know if that's what he was going for or not, but yeah, I thought, I was hoping that, we'll still have to see, but I'm hoping for a main event between the tag champions, but you never know.
Yeah. Which brings us to CM Punk. Punk's role plays were, personally, I did vote on this match, so I will talk about how I voted it. I thought the match talk was very strong, especially in the first role play. I did like that he, in the one role play he had, was doing an in-ring promo, which it was like, oh, he's doing an in-ring promo. Then it turns out it was actually on TV on an in-ring promo.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that was unique. That was different, and I gave him credit for that. But we sort of talked about off the air that, and this is my thought. It's like, to me, I felt like Punk was sort of wasn't the main focus. It's like, if you guys remember WrestleMania 20 when Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Stevie Richards were in the main event.
How about that?
Can't mention Chris Benoit. But no, I mean, the story was not Triple H, or it was not Shawn Michaels at all. The story was Chris Benoit and Triple H. Chris Benoit going for the title. Shawn Michaels was thrown in there because basically he was the previous #1 contender, and I don't know. I mean, they need to do something with him in a short.
He was in there to bridge. I think he was in there to bridge the gap.
Yeah, and so that's sort of, and that's not the fault of Jay at all in this case. It just, that's sort of where I saw Punk. And I thought that in his first role play, he really needed to bring in like something that was going to draw him into the match more, that would set him apart. And I didn't really get that. The writing was solid, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't sucked into the story arc at all, like to where I normally would be. His second role play, again, we went from in-ring promo to press conference, so I was like, RPing in the 90s, baby, yeah! And that was good. I like some of the points he brought up, including a few that I even shot at Leon at one point. And I thought that was really good. The match talk made the RP. The Q&A was okay, except I kind of was wondering why he talked about the tag match from Chaos in the second role play as opposed to talking about it in his first role play. And as we mentioned before, I'm a big fan of continuity and flow. And when it'd be like if I was on Raw and I lost on Raw, I came on the next Raw and was talking about what happened 3 Raws ago.
Yeah.
It just felt out of place to me, which made it a kind of an anticlimactic finish. Apparently, some other people seem to disagree with me, which is fine. Everyone's got their own opinions. And then the third role play I thought was actually very good. I loved the internal monologue as he's taking the fight to AQ, and then of course cuts to the promo to topple Leon, and that's a unique perspective. I've always been a fan of things that are outside the box. That RP could have been number 1, and that probably would have brought me in stronger for the arc, because now all of a sudden you're like, okay, here's the focus, beating AQ. So that was kind of where I was there. Again, my perspective is I think Alessandro wins and then loses to Leon in the final match. But again, I'm only one judge, so that's how I feel. Nothing against any of those writers, though. I did enjoy all the role plays. Definitely worthy of the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I will say that one of my favorite quotes that I wrote in that in those RPs were that they should start making shirts "Best in the World" for whoever beats CM Punk. So if Eli the Kid beats CM Punk, then it's Eli Kid best in the world. If Arn Anderson beats CM Punk, it's best in the world Arn Anderson.
I already got it.
Yeah, I loved writing that because I was laughing out loud as I did it.
If they had one of those, I would legitimately buy it. Oh man, that's been a blast. So. Anyway, that's the rundown of the WrestleMania card. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know we always do a little extra here at the end, so we were actually talking about, what was our topic on the last show that never was?
We actually talked about we were talking about handlers in EWE and characters. Like, who would you want to handle in EWE? What character would you like to take over? What character would you like to take over but you didn't think you could write for? And what character do you not want just because of the character?
That's right. By the way, if you are on the EWE website, once again, I will throw this out here, EWE online at ewe-wrestling.net63.net. Again, that's ewe-wrestling.net63.net. Check out the boards. We have the Behind Enemy Lines section. I'd love to see the comments from the listeners on what they think. Feel free to post it on YouTube or, of course, on our board, preferably on our board so everyone can see it. One thing, I think that's a very interesting question. Who would you like to handle? I know one of the characters I always thought I'd have a lot of fun with would be the White Tiger character, which I know took you by surprise when I said that. I've always liked the idea of the grizzled veteran. I've always been a fan of, and as many people know, I'm an old school wrestling fan. I grew up watching 80s wrestling, and I watched religiously until about 2004. And that's when I pretty much, became a smark and just watched all the indie stuff and whatever I could find on YouTube at the time or whatever. But I think White Tiger has a lot of depth, and I enjoy that he has so much history that you can touch base on. That that to me is fun. I like writing that way. So yeah, I think White Tiger would definitely be one I would enjoy handling.
And I think I said Buzz Williams would be one.
Buzz Williams?
Or Buzz was a former coach at University of Tennessee. But Buzz Jacobs, which is Chris's character.
Buzz.
I know it's I know it's new, But I really, really enjoy that character, and I think I could do a lot with that character. Not obviously not in EW, but I already told Chris that if I go outside of EW with Leon, which I am in a couple of feds, but I'm going to use a lot of the aspects that I learned from his Buzz Jacobs. And then maybe did I say Kelsey Parr?
Yes.
Yeah, Kelsey Parr, just because of I just feel that character's passion through Mike's role plays, and the first person took me a little while to get used to, so I would probably bring her back into probably a third person top view. But I think I could write that character really well, just because Leon's kind of just like Kelsey. I mean, they're two different characters, but both of them have that same babyface fire.
I agree. I think one thing I think, and we obviously had said before we weren't going to choose each other's characters.
Yeah.
Obviously, John and I have a very, very long, again, my best friend online for sure. One of my best friends in real life, frankly.
Yeah.
But we've had a hand in developing each other over the years and whatnot. So that's kind of an unfair. As much as I would love to do it, it's just I think he can do a Dutch Clark role play, and I think I could do a Derek Dane. I think I could do a Leon Cashmere role play.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I'm sure you could do a Jack Michaels. Hell, we both handled Joe Puff, so and Jonathan Steele. But there's a few. I know one that I thought would have been a lot of fun, and this was kind of going old school. I would have loved to have handled Captain Jack Sparrow. I thought that would have been a lot of fun. That character, I think it was DK, if I'm not mistaken, that did that.
Yes, I think you're right about that.
And he did a great job too. Don't get me wrong, but I think that'd be a lot of fun. Another one I thought of, John, and I know you might laugh when I say this, but it was a title holder. I would like to have handled the $1 Million Man.
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting... how long was the stint did $1 Million Man have in EW? Was it just a couple matches?
No. $1 Million Man actually, I think, won the X Division title, or one of the titles. He won a title, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look into the history, but or maybe it was just he held something. I know the $1 Million belt came into play at one point, but no, I mean, I thought the arc was good. I thought I remember I was giving out to you because I was like, someone's going to use Ted DiBiase Jr., and I was like,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden I look at the role play in the banner and it's frickin' Senior, and I'm like, oh my god, 80s wrestling, woo! And that's kind of how it's been, like when I brought back Ric Flair for a few matches, and Arn Anderson now. One thing I really have always enjoyed is giving wrestler, and Bobby Heenan, obviously, giving wrestlers a chance that never had a chance to have a twilight. Arn Anderson is a prime example of that. The guy was, 1997, that would have made him, let's see, he's 55 now, so 45, so he was what, 33? No. Wait.
I can't do math. I'm an English minor. I don't do math.
Wait a minute. 2004. So 2004, he would have been 45. 1994, he would have been 35, 36, 37. So he's basically 38 years old when he had to give up the boots. And, when you think about it realistically, Batista was 40 when he made his debut. So, that's what I'm saying. Or he was almost 40. So... And as you well know, John, age has really changed a lot in not just wrestling, but in general. 37, 38 is not retirement age anymore.
Yeah.
So I really wish that a guy like Arn, and John, I'm a huge Arn Anderson fan, and I know you like Arn as well. I think the guy was the pinnacle of technical wrestling, and he was a great brawler, could tell a great story in the ring, and I think a lot of people say that Ric Flair was the best promo of the Horsemen or Tully Blanchard. I thought Anderson did some amazing promos in his day.
Yeah, I went back, and now that I have the luxury of the WWE Network, I go back and watch a lot of older stuff, and Arn Anderson definitely one of my favorites from that time.
Yeah, again, that's...
Also the Boogie Woogie Man.
Jimmy Valiant.
Yes.
There's a lot of guys that I wish would have had a twilight to their career. I mentioned Bobby Heenan. Obviously, John, you and I are huge Bobby marks, and although he'll never listen to a show like this, our thoughts and our love are with him. He just had an accident where he broke his shoulder. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, Bobby had jaw cancer and had his entire throat cancer, I should say, and had his entire jaw removed. And his bones have just been very brittle from the chemo and radiation, and he's had several accidents. But his mind's still there. I would love to meet him, and hopefully, sometime before the inevitable happens.
Well, everybody that I read online said that he had been in really good spirits before that. So maybe his health was on the incline, but then he has that setback. So when the elderly have injuries like that, it's usually for the worst, and it's usually the start of the decline.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that's not the case, but I saw him during a signing about 7 months ago. I didn't see him personally. I'm in online. Bill Apter was interviewing his wife. I forget her name right now, but he was as funny as always. He's signing autographs and he's talking with the fans, and he looks up at the camera and he had his Hall of Fame ring on, and he pulls up the Hall of Fame ring, and all of a sudden he goes to his middle finger instead. I'm like, yeah, that's Bobby, all right. Yeah, subtle humor. He was great, but so I give him a Twilight in EWE. I have him with a titanium jaw and all that fun stuff. So. Yeah, I think I would love to handle any 80-star or 90-star that didn't really get a fair shake. That. How about you, John? I mean, is there anyone that you don't think got a good ending to their career that you would have liked to have handled?
You mean in like WWE?
WWE, WCW. I mean, I'm going to throw some names out there, but like Brian Pillman, for example, or Edge. Guys that just had their careers ended a lot earlier than maybe they should have. Mick Foley, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, not really that I would want to play. The only one that comes to my mind is CM Punk, because he left obviously on a sour note in WWE, and now he is in EWE, so the story arc makes sense. But yeah, he would be the only one that I would probably feel the most comfortable playing. But besides that, I had a run playing the Hurricane, and he's kind of not. He kind of left WWE on a sour note as well, so he can count too, I guess.
Yeah, there's a few guys that I mean, I don't know how good I would play them per se, but I think it'd be fun to just kind of, like I don't know if you ever were a fan of his, but Ricky Martel.
Yeah,
the model or former AWA champion. I still say I'm going to bring in Vern Gagne one of these days. 98 years old and senile.
He's still alive though, so you could pull it.
Yeah, well, he's in a mental hospital in Minnesota. That doesn't remember what he had for breakfast.
Well, you could. His gimmick could be like it's all going on in his head.
That's sad.
And like your last role play will be him just sitting in the hospital and he's just imagining all this.
He's 98 years old, throwing drop kicks still.
Yeah.
And we'll end on one final note, and this was something I actually had a conversation with Jay about. If you're handling a character who dies, for example, I know Umaga was probably a character a lot of people had when he passed away suddenly. What is the E-fetting standard for that? Do you drop the character because he's dead, or are you allowed to keep role-playing with him? John, what do you think about that?
I think you should be allowed. But then again, yeah, it's really tough, but I was thinking more pick-based than I was the actual character. Yeah. The actual character I think you should drop, but if you have... I'm for having dead wrestlers as pick-bases because I think it's a nice tribute to them.
Sure.
If it's your favorite, like I know Manny was, Eddie Guerrero for a while, I think that's just a nice throwback to, one of your favorite wrestlers. And, Jack Michaels is Rick Rude, and I know how much you liked Rick Rude, so... That's why... Yeah, just like, things like that. So I think if it's the character, then no, but if it's a pick base, then yes.
Yeah, it's really a gray area. I think, like, for example, let's say Bobby dies tomorrow and I'm using him. Now, obviously, the versions of Arn Anderson and Bobby Heenan are not true to life. There's no way Arn Anderson can be in a ring these days, and Bobby Heenan, of course, as we just said. But I write them as if they're, in pinnacle shape at 50, and I think Bobby's 65, 67, something like that. So yeah. I'm writing them as if they were in great shape. So, I don't know. I think if I had Bobby and he does pass away, I would probably... That's a tough question. I probably could write something where I said that he faked his death and make it seem like something. I got the insurance money. What more do you want?
Cut a promo from the casket.
He starts calling himself Bobby the Brain Geenan. He changes his name. That would be funny, actually. But yeah, that's a really gray area, and I know it has happened. I've never been in that situation. But again, as far as pick bases go, I completely agree with you. I think that Dead Wrestlers as pick bases is a fantastic tribute, and I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to do that.
Yep, agreed 100%.
So, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us into the end here. We're probably looking at about an hour and 25 minutes of time. I know it's a bit longer than you guys are. Well, screw it. We've done, 3-hour shows, so
yeah,
an hour and 25 minutes. Had a lot of fun. Ladies and gentlemen, I really do enjoy putting this together. John, I know you enjoy it as well. We've been very blessed to have had the opportunity to talk to you about e-fetting, and I raised my drink here, my Pacific Hazelnut Chocolate Milk that I'm still sipping on. Here's to another 10 years of EWE.
Absolutely. Here, I'm raising my Nestle water bottle.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And now I do the Steve Austin where I dribble it all down the face as I'm chugging.
And no, you give me a Stone Cold Stunner.
Yeah. And that's the bottom line. I can't do it. I can do a Mr. Perfect, and I can do a Dusty Rhodes. That's about it.
Let's not get into that, because that...
It's me, baby, the American dream. Dusty Rhodes, if you will.
Oh, boy.
That's fun. Anyway, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I really would like nothing more than see EWE continue on. We might have had some breaking news for the end of the show here, and actually... You know what, John? I'm going to bring one last thing up before we sign off, and I want to talk about this. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to cut here for just a second. I really want to talk about this, John. I don't know. How do you feel?
You know I don't care.
I know. I'm trying to think how I can bring this up without... I mean, I'm going to be a dick either way, but...
Hey, I'm following your lead, so whatever you want to do, let's do it.
Yeah. I want to bring up a final topic that has been discussed a little bit, and this is actually more of a serious note, and this actually was just brought up to my attention on Skype, and I'm not going to mention names, I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but there are people in e-fetting, and John, I know you've been going for, 14 years now?
I think 12.
13. I think
13. Yeah, you're right.
I'm going on 17, almost 18 years. We have built ourselves up, and what I mean by that is we have taken our licks in the game. We started in different areas, and we became the writers we are through trial and error, bettering ourselves, practicing. As English majors, minors, and as real-life writers, you hone your craft. And this is kind of a creative outlet for me, and John, I know it's the same for you. But one thing that bothers me is when I hear people say that because they have not elevated themselves to quote-unquote our level, that they're ready to quit the game. And to me, that is one of the most selfish and self-indulging things you could possibly say, especially considering that there is so much more that you can do to bring yourself to a higher level that many e-fetters simply don't do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like the old prototypical old man on the show, but I mean, I just come from a school where even in real life when I played sports, where hey, I worked my tail off to start my senior year of basketball at the high school I went to. And, I didn't start. I was the sixth man, seventh man off the bench. I got to play, but, I never had, I never got that moment. I never was the best player on the team. I had a couple of times where I was the leading scorer, but, I was an afterthought. But, I didn't quit the team, and that's just how I was raised. And it's like that with riding as well, or, any competition. I want to win just as much as anybody. That's why I ride. I want to be the best rider. I don't do this because, it's fun. I want to do it because I want to win. And for somebody just to quit because they're not good enough, as I told you off air, it's your own fault after a while if you're not winning. People are giving you feedback with judging, and you're obviously not listening, and that's why you're not winning.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it should also be fun. Let's clarify that. I mean, obviously you want to win, but if you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't be doing it. I mean,
I agree, but it's it's a lot more fun when you win.
Of course. Now, I come from a similar school. I was an athlete through school. I played basketball until my knees went. I played baseball, and of course, I bowled professionally. And I did not become a professional quality bowler. Well, semi-professionally, I shouldn't say. I don't carry a PBA card, but I have bowled on the PBA tour, and I am sponsored by a major bowling ball company for that very reason. As an athlete, I didn't become a great bowler by just walking out there and people handing me trophies.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I didn't shoot perfect games and high series. It doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, like anything else, you are going to have people that are the cream of the crop, that rise to the top. I'm sorry if a guy like myself or a guy like John or a guy like Jay or a guy like Mike or whoever win a world title because they're a better writer. I don't have sympathy for someone that complains that they're being held back or that they feel that they can't win the big match. Because quite frankly, maybe they can't. If they're not willing to improve themselves, maybe you have to be happy with that spot. And if not, that's a situation where if that's when you want to quit, if you feel you've listened to the feedback and you've done everything you can, maybe you should quit. But frankly, I would say 99.9% of the time, there's always something more. I know the people that are complaining in general, and again, I'm not mentioning names, but I can tell you through the grapevine, I don't think they've approached me to ask me my direct opinions. John, have they approached you?
No, and probably rightfully so, because I'm usually brutally honest, but I always expect people to be brutally honest to me back. So,
well, that's.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's a really good point that 99% of the time they haven't done all they can to get better. They think they have, but they haven't went that extra mile. They haven't changed up their style. They haven't come up with new ideas.
I totally agree. I will refer to someone by name on air just because she is part of our group. Jen is a good example. Here's someone that came to us and she was very frustrated, couldn't understand why we were judging the way we were, and it just took time before she realized we weren't, BSing her. We weren't trying to make her feel bad. We were trying to bring her to a level by letting her know what she needed to do. The feedback and I'm the same way as John. I'm going to be pretty honest with you. I mean, I'm not mean for the sake of being mean. That's not why I play EFED, and that's not why I like teaching. But John will vouch for this. If I thought something was crap that he wrote, I'd be like, look, this doesn't work. This is not captivating. This doesn't make sense. And Scar will tell you the same thing. I've been working with Gaz, and Gaz will tell you the same thing. I told him on a couple...
I was okay with it, and I changed it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be mature enough and willing to do that if, and that's a big if, you want to become a top-flight role player. And again, let's be honest. I am not Jason Belmonte. For those of you who don't know bowling, Jason Belmonte is ranked number 1 in the world as a bowler. I am not Jason Belmonte. I am not Kobe Bryant. I am a good basketball player. I was good for my conference, but I wasn't Kobe Bryant. I'm probably never going to be Kobe Bryant. I'm probably never going to be Jason Belmonte. I have to accept that I could be really good on certain levels, but maybe I'm not going to be that good on other levels. It's possible, and if I work my best and I can try to get there, it's definitely possible, but most likely it's not going to happen. What I mean by that is that basically there's going to come a point where if you're unwilling to grow anymore, you have to accept your lot. That's the only way I can explain it. And frankly, I'm tired of people coming to me complaining that, well, it should have been this way, it should have been that way. If all the judges say the same thing, or your friends say the same thing, or whatever the case is, and you're just not willing to go that extra mile, develop new characters, develop new storylines, I'm sorry, I don't have any respect for that.
Yep, I agree 100%, and I think you hit the nail on the head.
So. Oh, I hear someone yelling in the background.
Oh, it was Snapchat.
Oh, nice. Well, on that note, so anyway, yes, that's us giving out here, and I hope for you guys who are listening, you got something from this. If not, screw you, go find another show. Can I say that on the air? I just did. Who cares? Oh wait, you didn't get to drop your S-bomb this week, or since we re-recorded.
Ah, shit, I didn't.
To all you bridge builders listening, and for the 7 or 8 people that actually will get that joke, I want to say thank you very much. I am going to steal my phrase from Celebrity Deathmatch once again. Good fight, good night. Thank you for listening, and for all of our friends from EWE, have a great night.